Did it go?
Okay, good. I'm Jane Susswine. I'm president of the Kaplan Center, and delighted to welcome you all to this last session. I'm sorry I couldn't divide myself in all these parts, and I look forward to watching the segments on the website. We want to thank Pam in advance for offering her Tikun Ha'ir program. Pam grew up in Chicago and attended Anshe Emet Day School. She attributes her love of Torah, Haftorah, and especially cantillation to her teachers there. That's my love as well. Their inspiration led to her tutoring her sons and eventually to her work as an accomplished B'nai Mitzvah tutor of well over 100 young men and women at Adat Shalom. So look forward to hearing you, Pam.
Thank you. Okay, so I just want to tell you all that I am just going to do this as if there were 500 people here. And I also really encourage you to interact. And I'm actually going to do a couple of things where I'm going to ask you questions or etc. Okay, so I'm from Adat Shalom, Reconstructionist Congregation in Bethesda. I did see Rabbi Fred lurking in the big group. And I'm actually, in the past year and a half, I am now on staff. I was a member for years and years and years. Then I started teaching some. I'm a singer and I've taught middle school music and drama for years, but I started doing some teaching and became the 6th grade teacher, and then became the teen, I guess my title is Teen Programs Coordinator. So yeah, but I've always had a profound love for particularly middle school students. Some people would say I'm running away from those people, but I love them. And I also am quite engaged with high school students, especially at Adat Shalom. So in 2016, I started working on a new program called Tikun Ha'ir, which is sort of a take on Tikkun Olam, but it's repairing the city. And I live a block and a half from Washington, D.C. in Tacoma Park, Maryland. And what I've noticed is that a lot of people who live, say, in Maryland or Virginia, or some people even in D.C., know very little about parts of the D.C. area. And I wanted to really use the city as a classroom, but also I am really, really interested in the notion of you don't need a building to pray in or to learn in or to have experiences in. You just need the spirit and the means for traveling wherever you're going to go. So I would say that this is also like an experiential mishkan. That's how I look at it, this program. And I really think that in particular, Bar Mitzvah age young people and post Bar Mitzvah age young people are primed to do experiential work. And also they're very passionate about service learning. So I was really tailoring this program to that age group. I also think they're really searching for all different kinds of identity at this time, whether it's personal identity or their sense of community, and of course their Jewish identity. So the first time that this program was implemented was in the summer of 2016, and it was right after school ended, the 3 weekdays after school ended, in between school and when people went off to camp or to do other things. And it worked out to be the perfect time to have this program. And I have to mention that it became, it's become, I should say, a regular offering and quite successful. And of course, we endured the height of COVID. And I was thinking, well, there's no way we can do this program. But I changed it and worked on it with a few other teachers. And then we offered it 3 times during the height of COVID. So I'm going to talk about both versions. Okay. So the Repairing the City program, which focuses on hunger, homelessness, and gentrification in Washington, D.C., is an immersive service mission. Though it's impossible to simulate what it's like to worry constantly about your next meal or keeping a roof over your head. Tikun Ha'ir seeks to have participants experience, in addition to study and discuss issues. Living for 3 days and 2 nights at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church in Columbia Heights, which is a neighborhood that kind of exemplifies the pluses and minuses of gentrification, requires participants to sleep on the floor of the church sanctuary and sometimes the parish hall. Participants wake up really early. They put all their belongings into a small, secure room. They can lock everything up. And then they leave the church for their various daytime projects. They do without showers. Every single time we've had this program, we've voted as to whether or not to take showers during the program. And it's always been unanimous. They bring soap or they bring deodorant, but nobody takes a shower for the whole time. They're required to leave their communal sleeping, kitchen, and bathroom spaces spotless. And that's for 2 reasons. One is we are big on kavod. We're using somebody else's space, but also we save a lot of money because then we don't have to pay for custodial services. So it's an extra layer of service. Okay. All the purchasing and consumption of food during these 3 days and 2 nights is done by, there's teams of 4 or 5 students. I sort of figure out who's on what team, and there's a madrich or madricha for each team, and they're usually older high school students or college students who I pay to help out with the program. And most of them have been in the program before, so they're kind of like advancing. And they made up the name of, they're called big cheeses. So the big cheeses are part of the program, but they also are responsible for their team. Okay, so each team is given, I have some props here, a small zippered case, and inside the case is cash. The cash is the equivalent to what a family of 5 living in DC receives for 3 days if they are receiving assistance from SNAP. I don't know if you know the government program SNAP. It's Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So this money, which usually is between $50 and $58, I haven't checked the latest breakdown, that's the only money they can use to get food, okay? And they have to make all the decisions as a team as to how they're going to spend their money, okay? They can walk to the nearest supermarket, because we're in a very urban area, with a chaperone. They can walk to one of a host of fast food places or restaurants, or they can purchase a variety of small items from an in-house store that we set up prior to their arrival at the church. So I'll show you 2 examples. A pickle and some Tootsie Puffs. I just have like all different stuff. It's not like, oh, we're gonna only have healthy food. You know, I have Doritos, I have an apple, I have, you know, peanut butter sandwiches, whatever. And each item costs 50 cents. So the group even has to decide how they're gonna spend their money in this in-house store. Okay. In addition, each team is required to participate in a sort of an Iron Chef style competition on on the second evening of our program. They have to use part of their cash to buy the ingredients for a meal that they are going to eat themselves and also offer to several judges who are going to evaluate their meal on presentation, creativity, taste, nutritional value, and how little they spend. So it's also an idea of like, you're going to make the most delicious, beautiful meal for the least amount of money, okay? So the money is a huge, the whole budgeting issue and the teamwork is a huge part of this program. Keeping the focus on hunger and homelessness on such a personal level helps create a real sense of mishpacha, of family, and bonding between the students, the big cheeses, myself, and usually work with one or more fellow teachers who commit to not taking showers, sleeping with many rascally teenagers, etc., for 3 days. It also makes for a kind of seamlessness between the 4 Tikun Ha'ir projects that we do out in the city during the day, and the fact that the participants are also dealing with the basics of living. And it certainly makes for some great discussions, both planned discussions and spontaneous ones. And sometimes my favorite discussions are those I eavesdrop on, so because it's totally amazing the reaction that these kids have to this whole experience. So the choice of this neighborhood, which is called Columbia Heights, works out really well. We walk almost everywhere, whether it's raining, burning hot, because we do this in the summer, so it's very unpredictable as to the weather, or sometimes we travel by metro, and everybody is given, where is it? A smart card. Some of them have never ridden on the metro before. So this in itself is an education, okay? So I'm very big on every aspect. They have to really work it out. They can ask for help, but it's all about, middle school kids want to be independent, but they also really need your help. So it's a very good balance. Okay, so there's also very close to where the church is, this beautiful, it's kind of like a combination of a sculpture and a fountain. And it's sort of like in this pedestrian area, and you're allowed to run through it. So that is actually like a natural shower that they can use if they're really hot or they feel kind of grimy, so they can play and frolic through this sculpture. I also think that it's great that this community is very, very diverse. And I think that it's an eye-opener to many of the teens. So this is a quote. This is one of the eavesdropping conversations I heard once. "I feel embarrassed to be white," I once overheard a boy say to several of his friends as we walked together down 14th Street Northwest. When I asked him if he felt that way all the time, or just being in this particular place, he said, "Just here." Many Jewish learning, I call them nuggets, are embedded within the program, and some just spontaneously appear. We discuss basic Jewish attitudes toward poverty, especially the concept of resisting the temptation to view anyone experiencing hunger or homelessness as somebody different than ourselves. Saying the motzi takes on a much more heartfelt tone. Participants may wrestle with an ethical issue like whether or not to eat pork sausage offered as part of a free breakfast at one of the places that we work at. So others might eat, we serve breakfast, and then they give us a free breakfast, but the kids don't know that till after they've served. So some kids think, "Oh, this sausage, it's free. I'm so hungry. Oh no, I'm Jewish. My family keeps kosher at home." So these are the kinds of things, real time, very basic issues that they're wrestling with. Now, I hope that maybe you will participate in a couple of little exercises and things that we do during this program. So first of all, I'm going to talk about the shelter simulation. So what I do is we start the program after doing kind of an orientation. We work at a place called DC Central Kitchen, which is an enormous commercial kitchen which prepares thousands of meals for places of worship and shelters and other nonprofits across the DC area. And the kids work really, really hard there. They're exhausted when they finish. And we ride the metro and walk back to the church. The second we get back to the church, I tell them, take off your shoes. They have to line up their shoes. They're given no information whatsoever. But I know, and the big cheeses know, that now they are starting a simulation and they are going into a shelter, okay? The next thing is I have this basket and I say, put your cell phone in here. A lot of the kids, you can imagine the reaction. They are not happy, but we want them all to be totally focused on what we're doing, and also sort of not have an ability to like go outside the boundaries of this exercise, okay? Then they are given a bag. I'll show you what they get. So this is a sample bag of what each of them gets. This is their food for the evening and for all night. So sometimes it's soup, sometimes this is oatmeal, okay? And we do have a microwave that they can use at the church, okay? Here's, we give them like a little thing of crackers. This is vanilla pudding, an apple, a bottle of water, and they can always refill it, and a plastic serving spoon. Okay, so this is what these teenagers who want to eat nonstop, if any of you who know teens, you know they want to eat all the time. Okay, so they are given this bag of food, and they are told, this is the food that will last you till morning. They are allowed to trade food if they want, but that's it, okay? They have also brought a pillow and a sleeping bag from home, so they are allowed to get those items. There is a very strict curfew, as is the case in so many shelters. There is a specific time for lights out, and no one is allowed to talk after lights out. So what we usually do is a couple of us supervisors, we are good cops and the others are bad cops. And so if somebody talks or makes any kind of disruption, they are taken away and sort of put in an isolated area for the, I mean, they're all within this huge sanctuary space, but they're not allowed to be like really close to their peers. Okay. Eventually everybody falls asleep, or they talk to the good cop, and then they're allowed back to where they started from. And they're exhausted, so eventually they all fall asleep. Then in the morning, they have to leave the shelter at 6:30 a.m., which is very common in shelters, especially in DC. They're given their shoes, but they aren't told anything else. And then they have to go and sit outside for 40 minutes, which is an eternity when you do not know what comes next. But that, we think, is a pretty important thing. We don't make them sit in silence necessarily, but we ask for them to stay in one place, be respectful, and really like focus on what they've experienced in the shelter. Okay, so that's an example of the kind of simulations that we do. Occasionally, the church that we stay in is an amazing institution. They're a church, it's very progressive. They're known for, if somebody comes for a rally, people can stay there. They also rent out their offices to a huge amount of nonprofit groups. Also, they themselves in the basement have a very small kind of soup kitchen where people can come in, they can take a shower, they're given toiletries, and they can get food served. So I have several times asked the managers of that soup kitchen if we can get in line and simulate being people who need food. And the kids are very respectful, and they sometimes try to like get in line in between other guests who are in line. And that has, I think, been the most profound experience for the teens who have experienced this, because they are having to decide, you know, am I going to take more than one item on this table because there's a whole room full of people waiting to be served? Do I hate all the food, and am I so hungry that am I going to take the food anyway? They've observed really, really disturbing fights breaking out between other guests who have come to get a meal. And we've talked through all of those situations, but I think it shines a very, very bright, revealing light on, you know, reality, which of course I cannot provide for them total because they're only experiencing everything for 3 days, but it's enough of a dosage that I have seen amazing results, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so I am now going to ask you to participate in a couple of games, exercises, whatever you want to call them, that we do in our Tikun Ha'ir program. So I'm going to pose a question. And if you would like to respond, I would be thrilled. Okay, so this is called Choose It or Lose It. Imagine you and your family were just told that you have 10 minutes to vacate your home or apartment. You're being evicted. You can only take whatever you can fit in a backpack. What things would you take with you? And this is another question, what things would be hard to leave behind? So think about this for a minute, and if you have any response, just go right ahead.
I guess I think of my memorabilia, like leave for good, right?
Yes, yes. And you know, I'm sure, well, I'm not sure, but if you drive down the street sometimes and you see it's not garbage and it's not a yard sale, and it's this enormous amount of furniture and boxes and detritus, that's pretty much an eviction. So it's right before that happens. So
It's a tough question.
yes, Daniel.
Well, the standard joke is that no Jew is very far from his passport. So that's the first thing that the Jew will remember to take with him. And the other are photos of family. And the third item has to be something out of the library, something in text, something that's comforting, something that's meaningful, not heavy, but something you can get some warmth out of. And I would certainly, I have a very large selection to draw from, but I think I would draw something out of the ethical and prophetic and proverbial, not too heavy, and something that will give me some comfort.
That's beautiful. And I also think, I always think of, I can't remember who wrote the poem, but it's like, we are the people of the word. You know, we carry our words with us wherever we go, whether they're a book or they're on our phone or they're just in our head or our heart. So I love that. Yeah. Anybody else? What would you take with you? A lot of kids are sort of like balancing the practical and more like what Daniel said. You know, it's like, oh my goodness, what do I need? You know, what do I need? What do I need? And a lot of them also are very concerned about pets, which is also a huge issue. Like, what do you do? It's another life, you know. So that's one of the exercises that we do. Now the other one, I happen to have a backpack here, and this represents a backpack of a student who is experiencing homelessness. Okay, so when I'm in the presence of these students, what I usually do is I lay out everything that's in the backpack, and each one of them can select one of these items and then really think about it and then tell the group, what's the meaning of this item, or what circumstance might this student be in? So I'm going to just show you a few of them. Okay, they're pretty, I mean, some of them are pretty obvious. Okay, so here's one. So what might you think about this student? Just.
But they have a baby, they have a child. They have
a
child.
child.
They're
Exactly.
or they're caring for a sibling, I guess.
It could be, yeah, no, either or, correct. All right. Now, what about this? Is a little bit connected. Okay.
Oh, that's a lovey.
Okay, that's a lovey. Now, it could be for the student, or it could be for the baby or their, you know, their sibling, you know. Okay. Here's another one. You read this?
The
Or is
little
it
Bible.
a little Bible. So. Then this one. Can you figure out maybe what somebody might do with this? I don't think they're gonna use it to paint something.
Graffiti?
Graffiti, but something way more disturbing. Do you know that some people, they inhale the
Oh.
fumes? I mean, it would be the equivalent if I had, you know, a bottle of whiskey or something. But this is a fairly, it's sad to say, a fairly common way that young people can get like a high off of it. And it's also pretty dangerous.
I would imagine.
Yeah, yeah. And wait, I'll do one more. Let's see. Just a minute. Okay, I don't know if you can tell what this is. I'll demonstrate what it is.
Oh, it's one of those things in school that,
But what is it supposed to do for you?
Relieve arthritis.
Yeah, and relieve stress. It's actually
Anxiety.
it's a
or
brain.
whatever.
It's a brain, but it's a stress, and it could be anything. This is just one I have in my house, but yeah, it's a stress reliever. So we talk about, you know, there's so many different situations that can turn you into somebody who's experiencing homelessness, because I think a lot of people have a stereotype about what, you know, you walk down the street and you see somebody coming towards you asking for money, right? And even that, it creates a whole bunch of questions and ethical situations, like, should I give them money to the person? What are they going to use the money for? Should I carry, you know, food around with me so I can give them food? You know, all those kinds of things that we discussed. But anyway, those are examples of kinds of exercises that we do. And one last thing that we do before the program starts, of course, I send them a list of what they should bring. And it's pretty basic. It's like a water bottle, you know, basic t-shirts and comfortable clothes, and deodorant and earplugs if you are a light sleeper. But one thing that I ask everybody to bring with them before the program starts is a small memento that reminds you of home and happiness. So they all bring it with them, and then we sit around and we discuss each one and why they've brought it. So that really feeds into, Daniel, what you were talking about. So, you know, everybody has a different feeling about what does home mean, you know. So I always want to really emphasize, think about not just shelter, but what does home mean? So now what I want to do is talk about we've worked with 4 main nonprofits, and what we get from them is not just an experience of working, but frequently they will take time and staff to do simulations for us and other things. So I'm going to just briefly run down the 4 nonprofits we've worked with. I already mentioned DC Central Kitchen, which does really intensive commercial kitchen work. They create, I think, something like 5,000 meals a week for people in the DC metropolitan area. And they also try to use, they've created this alliance with lots of restaurants and other providers of food to give them food that they haven't used, okay? And so what the kids are doing when they're there, they're peeling, they're slicing, they're hauling food supplies from the freezers, they're opening industrial sized cans of tuna, they're using stack ovens to bake and to cook. So they get a real great experience there. But their CFO, who is Jewish, has talked with us each time, and he asks questions like, do you know what the word tzedek means? So he brings in like a whole other discussion beyond what we do at this place. We also frequently work at a family shelter run by a nonprofit called Community of Hope. And in addition to them offering the kids an opportunity to play with their young residents, to scrub the walls, to create motivational posters and other tasks, they have created amazing simulations for the kids where they each have to be a single parent on a budget and to figure out how much they're going to spend on rent and transportation, etc. And also specifically, how do you, like, let's say you're a single mother and you have 2 kids, and one kid goes to one daycare and one kid goes to school, and you have to get to work to figure that all out. Very practical knowledge. We also work at a place called SOM, which stands for So Others Might Eat, where that's the place where they work 3 consecutive breakfast shifts, and they serve hundreds of men and women experiencing homelessness. They cook, they set the table, they seat and serve guests, and then they are rewarded with a free breakfast. And then finally, we do work with an organization called We Are Family DC, which advocates and does very basic services for low-income seniors. So what the kids do, and they love this, they get to push shopping carts down the street to a farmer's market in the heart of the neighborhood where we stay. They prepare CSAs, amazing produce, for the residents of 3 subsidized senior apartment buildings in the neighborhood. And then they roll the shopping carts into these 3 buildings, they divide up, and they deliver the produce door to door to each individual or couple who's put in an order. And I believe that the CSAs are $1 for this enormous thing of vegetables and fruit. It's great. So I also just want to talk a tiny bit about how we turned this program into a COVID experience, which worked out amazingly well. We did it 3 times. I think because all these kids and their families were at home and they wanted some kind of experience. So what we did was we shortened the experience to 2 days and 1 night. Everything was totally home or apartment based. We tried to use Zoom really sparingly. We only used it for group meetings, with a whole group meeting together, usually about 20 kids. And then for guest speakers. We even had vegan cooking classes online. And then each team of 4 or 5 kids and their big cheese supervisor interacted via cell phone. So what we did, we sort of modified it. So instead of working for nonprofits, we made masks for a women's and a men's shelter. We probably made up to 1,000 cookies for Shepherd's Table, which is a suburban Maryland soup kitchen. We made those, those really easy do-it-yourself blanket kits where you you make the fringes and all that. So we made hundreds of blankets for a Muslim nonprofit that provides food, clothing, and bedding for those in need. And then we had kind of like a little, a few people donated money to the cause, and we got almost 300 backpacks filled with school supplies for elementary and middle school kids. And we met in a park masked to go around and fill up all the backpacks. Okay, so all the supplies for these things and for the cooking class, we delivered a box to each household. So they, we rang the doorbell and they had their supplies. And then each participant, this I found to be the most amazing thing. Each participant was required to create their own shelter, either inside or outside their house or their apartment. And the most amazing experience was during the winter, the end of December, all 20 participants spent the night outside in a tent or in a box or in some lean-to that they created. And I felt like I had to walk the walk. So I slept in my van. And let me tell you, I didn't sleep hardly at all. And my organizer, he created a tent and slept in it and was freaked out in the middle of the night because this huge opossum came to the front of his bed. So anyway, so that was amazing. And then we also modified the whole idea of living on SNAP money. So they had to keep track in their home of how much they were spending. And then they worked individually to do the cooking competition. It was too hard to do. If there were siblings, they could do it in the same house. And so we had, the judges couldn't, of course, evaluate the taste of the food. So we had each household designate an objective taster to do that part of it. but we did everything online. So they did presentations about the meal that they were creating, so they could talk about it and show it, etc. But nobody could taste it except somebody in their household. So basically, this is what we do, and I'm hoping that we can continue. And as Reconstructionists, we are always evolving, and so I am always sort of evolving in terms of my programs. The last thing that I want to do is if I start crying, just bear with me. But one of the most amazing guest presenters that we had several times during this program was a young woman named Gabriela Inez Sevilla. She went to law school at Howard University, and then she was doing an internship. You know, when they have like tent cities where all these people are living in tents, there's especially terrible ones all through DC, and especially near Union Station, the train station. So part of her job, she was working for an organization that helps people experiencing homelessness. She was supposed to be a witness when the DC police does a sweep, and they basically like clear away the tent city. And of course, a week later, they move somewhere else. But she got very close to a couple and their dog who were living in one of the tents. The woman was working at Arby's, and her husband was disabled. And so Gabriela decided to like help them out. She didn't have much herself, but she started a GoFundMe campaign, and she raised almost $40,000 to this couple, enough so that they could pay the first month rent and a security deposit on an apartment. And she has, stayed in touch with them. And her story was in the Washington Post, and I saw it. And so I called her. So she did these amazing, like Q&A interactive things with us, even during COVID. And then she became an attorney at the National Homelessness Law Center. Unfortunately, about a month ago, I was driving home and I heard a report that she had died, and she had choked on something and died, and she was all of 29 years old. So I am dedicating this presentation to her. So that's it.
You are God's gift. Oh my God, what a amazing.
Yeah, and I think we just got the 1 minute warning or less, but
I know.
thank you so much, Pam. And this is going to go on our website.
Okay.
Several people signed up that didn't make it this afternoon.
It's okay. I mean, I'm not, I'm Reconstructionist, but I have not done anything in
No,
the.
this is wonderful. One of our morning presenters, no one ended up showing up, even though they signed up, but
Oh, really?
he recorded for us.
Okay.
We have his, we have his.
Can you send a link to the recording to me?
I will. Yeah, once I figure,
That would
I'm
be
going to
great.
stop the recording.